Welcome to the session, Common Mistakes in QuickBooks Online and How to Fix Them. More importantly, how to fix them. The first thing I want to do is get an understanding of who you are. And fortunately, we have this neat polling tool. So I'm going to, assuming as an accounting practitioner, I don't always have the right technique to be able to do this right. So if you'll pardon any hiccups, my expectation is that you see a poll up on your screen now, and if you would please tell me where you're from. It's really testing two things out. One, that you're paying attention 2 minutes into the presentation, and two, that you're able to see the poll and able to participate in the poll. So it looks like almost greater than 90% of you are in the United States, and others are in Canada. 2% are in other. So that may be a state of mind as opposed to a country, but that's great if we've got people from elsewhere around the globe. So let me close that poll. And again, if you'll pardon me, one of the awkward things about a webinar is I have a relatively small screen, and I want to make sure I can see what you're seeing here. Great, so I'm going to start with just a quick introduction about who I am. It's not important to know necessarily who I am, but just to give you context around the perspective with which I come. So I'm a local CPA in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my business primarily centers around tax preparation and business valuation. I work with really small businesses, micro businesses, the mom and pop shops that are all over town, and many of my clients operate in a home office like I do, or they operate in their garage, or they operate in space that's sort of commercial space on the outside of town. My clients are generally very small businesses. And as a practitioner, I'm entirely paperless and entirely virtual. So that allows me the freedom, and QBO is a good testament to a tool that I can use as a virtual accountant. Because my office is in my backpack, it means that I'm able to do everything I can do at my desk in a Starbucks, or really in an airport, anywhere I have internet access. And today I can even do that in an airplane. So that's one of the neat things about being a virtual accountant, is that the nature of our business allows us to work anywhere we have internet access, as long as we get the paper into data, that sort of transition. So I say here that I'm a QuickBooks certification collector, as with many of us. And I use the term accountant, by the way. I'm talking about, I happen to be a CPA, but many in the profession, I believe upwards to 60% of the Intuit accountant customer base is ProAdvisors, bookkeepers, consultants, those other than CPA per se. So if I use the term accountant instead of accounting professional, please pardon me, I'm speaking to everyone who is involved in our clients' books in some way, whether that's reconciling or preparing a tax return or doing some sort of analysis with the data. So as with many of us, the QuickBooks certification over time means that we get better placement on the Find a ProAdvisor site, and means we're able to promote ourselves more completely to clients. And so that's why I'm a QuickBooks Online Advanced Certified ProAdvisor, a QuickBooks Desktop Advanced Certified ProAdvisor, and a variety of other ones I'll save. And I'm obviously maybe not so obviously, I'm very fortunate to be a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, which is why I'm able to present this material to you today. So talking about CPE, this webinar is eligible for CPE. So here are the game rules, as should be no surprise. You have to stay for the entire webinar. There's going to be a CPE keyword given in the webinar, and at the end of the webinar, you will be prompted through a poll, just like the one we just did, to enter that keyword, and that'll entitle you to the CPE certificate, and that certificate will be emailed within a few weeks of today's training. So that's going to come from accountant_training@intuit.com, and in the era of much spam and email, it's important to have the list of email addresses that you accept. So and because the emails contain considerable HTML, I don't know what that means, but you know that the nature of the email makes it a little more likely to go into spam. So that's why it's important to make that a safe address. So our learning objectives, which are a really important element for CPE, is to identify best practices for cleaning up mistakes in QBO, understand what goes on commonly and how to fix it, and identify resources where you can go to get additional help. So I have to mention here at the beginning that my presentation style can tend to vary from what you see on the deck. And so I want to call that out just so that you're aware. My intention is to communicate this material in as practical, useful way to you as an accounting professional as I think it would be helpful to me as an accounting professional. So as I see things that may cue me to talk about something that I see every day with clients, and I want that to be practical input, and that means I can vary from what you see on the screen. So I just want to, and this is a case in point, so I just want to call that out so that you're aware that what I'm trying to do here is make sure that you know what our clients are going to do in the way they're going to make mistakes and how you can correct it. And it may vary a little bit from what you see on the screen. In terms of the materials, there's a bit.ly here, and what's important to know about bit.lys, if you're having trouble finding it, bit.lys are case sensitive, so it's bit.ly/QBO_common, all lowercase. So thinking about the new QuickBooks Online, so let me back up and set a framework for this. If you're an accounting professional like I am, I was used to and still have most of my clients using QuickBooks Desktop. And what I'm finding at this time is that more and more clients every week, more and more prospects who are coming to me asking for help are using QuickBooks Online. So whether I love QuickBooks Online, which I happen to, or I am uncertain about QuickBooks Online, or I know that I have to learn a great deal about QuickBooks Online, I'm willing to make that investment because the prospect pipeline is coming through QuickBooks Online. So I want to be able to at least support this tool at a base level, and I want to know what kind of pitfalls my clients are going to have as I got used to all of those pitfalls in desktop. You know, the sort of thing where in desktop, let's say, they do a receive payment transaction in advance of an invoice transaction. And what happens is you get an orphan received payment and an orphan invoice, and you have to match those. Now in QuickBooks Online, that doesn't happen to be an issue, but knowing that in desktop, being aware of that information, helps us better serve our clients because we can match up those transactions. That's just one of 72 examples of workarounds we've come up with desktop over time. And this is the same sort of thing. We need to teach our clients how to use QuickBooks Online. I'm going to save a syllable for the rest of our session here. I'm going to refer to QuickBooks Online as QBO. So with our clients who are using QBO, they need to know how to use this tool effectively, just like they have to learn to use any accounting tool. And it can be a challenge, at least it was for me. It was a challenge to get behind this product because I had all of my base in QuickBooks Desktop, and that was working fine. It was sort of like there was no pain. But now, having supported QBO for a couple of years and using it for my own practice, I'm really excited about things like the bank feed. And this is what we're seeing up on the screen here. And what you're seeing on the screen is the new QBO, which is to say the application goes through, has gone through a few different major design changes. And so what you're seeing on the screen is new QBO, which if you don't see this yet, you may start to see this in the next few months, let's say. So where we have a new accountant toolbox where we go in, accessing our clients' books, which are in QBO, through qboa.intuit.com. We log in as an accounting professional, and then we have accounting professional tools, and we're able to see our clients' data just as we would if we went to qbo.intuit.com. So speaking about how to get into QBO in the right way, if things don't look right on the screen, it may be that you're using, I'm trying to think of the right diplomatic term for avoiding Internet Explorer, but QBO is designed to operate in Chrome. I understand it also works fairly well in Firefox, and I believe Firefox is a supported browser. So if you're a Firefox fan for some reason, that's great. And I know it can be difficult to switch browsers. I've been using Chrome for quite a while, and I love it, love it, love it. But I know there was a time when Firefox and Internet Explorer were sort of the competing browsers, and I was like digging my heels about Internet Explorer. I didn't want to try something new. So I can understand if you're comfortable with Firefox, that's a supported browser. I highly recommend personally that you use Chrome for QBO and QuickBooks Online Accountant, QBOA. So if you've got issues with what you're seeing on the screen, or the login screen doesn't come up, these sorts of things, there are a few tools that you can use without needing to contact care. One is to sign out and sign back in. I don't know why it works, but oftentimes just signing out and signing back into the company will resolve whatever issues that you're seeing on the screen if things don't look right. In addition, you can clear your cache and cookies. That's another tool you can use. And let me actually illustrate that. If I can. So here I am in Chrome. In the upper right, we see these three bars that are sort of the settings preferences icon. I'm not sure how they came up with that design, but here we can go to settings, and I'll let it refresh here. And then under advanced settings, there's a content settings button, all in Chrome, and there's a clear browsing data. So if you click clear browsing data and tell the browser that from the beginning of the time you want it to clear particularly these cached images, easy for me to say, and cookies, and then I just take the default here and say clear browsing data. Then what I do, I don't think it's required, but I close out of Chrome and then go back in. That's a way to, if things don't look right, to kind of reset. And that's often what care will have you do as a first thing anyway, so it can't hurt to try that before contacting care. By and large, I don't mean to invoke fear about how QBO operates. It's not very often that you're going to need to do this, but when it happens, I find that the error rate to be much lower in QBO than in QuickBooks Desktop. So thinking about best practices for how to consult with our clients, one of the things to keep in mind, I know that there's a relatively new tool out there today to handle this, but let's say we're talking about a week ago. One of the major differences currently between QBO and QuickBooks Desktop is that the concept of making changes and then sort of etch-a-sketching and going back to what you had before. So to give an example, if I'm in desktop, I can create a backup and then obliterate a bunch of transactions or reclassify transactions. If it doesn't work out for whatever reason, I can just restore the backup and I'm back to my set point before I did anything. That is not the case in QBO. So if you're going to make a bunch of changes in QBO, you'll want to know what your set point is. So for that, the recommendation is to print out, a balance sheet, a P&L, a general ledger, either to PDF or put it out to Excel, so that you know what got changed. And that also can be important to communicate to your client. Here's the before picture, here's the after picture, and be able to communicate to your client all of the work that was done, which is often lost on clients. I mean, I'm assuming that your clients are similar to mine. In many cases, because my clients don't understand accounting, they don't understand the benefits of great bookkeeping, they don't understand the how, the why, the where it goes, they don't understand how it translates into a tax return. They're focused on understanding their business, selling new business, being able to generate more revenue, save costs, that sort of thing, which is great. But because my clients are not great accountants, it's often important for me to communicate in some way to them, at least that I did, a great deal of work, that it's important to do that work because it makes the quality of the tax returns better. That's in my case. Maybe the end run isn't tax returns for you. But so printing out reports beforehand is a great tool to make sure that that you know where you started. So as I've mentioned before, I would always recommend that you log in through QBOA.intuit.com. That's QuickBooks Online Accountant.intuit.com. So by going in through QBOA, you see your list of clients. For one, you see all of the QBO clients for whom you are the accountant user, and you have the ability to use the accountant tools like Reclassify Transactions. And if you log in through QBOA, you're going to see your changes. You're able to see in the audit log of the QBO company what your changes were. You've got, not only reclassify transactions, but you can make adjusting journal entries. That checkbox for adjusting shows up. So as a tax practitioner, that's a really important critical reason to go in through QBOA.intuit.com. And each company file is entitled to have 2 accountant users. So in a typical scenario, I'll be one of the accountant users. I don't go in very often. I'll just go in typically at year end to prepare a tax return. And the bookkeeper consultant who I work with is the other accountant user. So, so that it's a good reason to create the accountant users so that you can access the company through QBOA.intuit.com. If you've got major changes to make, I think I might be belaboring the point here about how important it is to communicate the details of our work to our client. But I think it helps. It certainly helps substantiate billing, and it helps the client understand that this is not easy to correct mistakes, and it helps them understand, collaboratively down to the lower item there. It helps them to understand that the better job they do, the less cleanup work we have to do. So, so now that we have access, I mean, the beauty really of QBO is that we have access to the data all the time. So to use the desktop analogy, with desktop work, I or the bookkeeper consultant who I work with need to schedule regular meetings, and sometimes those meetings don't work out in person, or we have to have some process around, getting the accountant's copy of the file to be able to work with it and send it back, or the client will give us the .qbw, the entire data file on Friday night, and we'll work over the weekend and have it Monday morning. those types of issues about the data exchange game are avoided with QBO. We have access to the data all the time. So I think this gives us an opportunity to be in the data and be working with the data on a more proactive basis and more frequent basis. That can mess with how we bill, or if we're designed to bill based on the time or effort or number of transactions that we work through. Maybe we have to rethink how we bill, but certainly we have much better access to the data to be able to fix what we need to fix and be able to train the client so that they get better and better over time. So a few things, and I'm referencing desktop quite a bit, and I want to mention that the reason that I'm doing that is because that I was based in desktop, and I think many of us accounting professionals were originally based in QuickBooks Desktop. So I think that's a good launch point just to give comparisons, because oftentimes I want to know, how is QuickBooks Online different from QuickBooks Desktop? Not because I expect to really compare the two. I'm just used to doing a process in desktop. How am I going to do that same thing in online? So these are some of the items that that are important to highlight. So in terms of accounts, in desktop, if we want to merge two accounts, because our clients create accounts like USPS expense, UPS expense, FedEx expense, they create an expense account for every vendor, that kind of thing. And again, it may just be my clients, but if your clients do that sort of thing, we have this need to merge accounts. I want to merge those all into one account called postage expense. In QuickBooks Desktop, if we do that merge, we simply name account B the same as account A. When we go to save the changes to account B, we're prompted. It says, hey, I've already got an account by that name. Do you want to merge these two? You say yes, you're done. Everything's great. In QBO, what's important to note is that in addition to an account type, asset, liability, other current asset, expense, those general account types, there's a detail type, which is an additional field that is an additional attribute of each account in QBO. So if you're going to merge two accounts, they need to have the same account type and detail type. Maybe what I can do is just illustrate this. So if I go into this expense account, oops, I went into register. Isn't that classic? I want to edit this account, and my GoToMeeting is hovering over. Okay, so if I go to edit this account, notice that it has a category type, which is our income, expense, asset, other current asset, the general type. And then it also has this detail type. So if you're trying to merge two accounts, and you name them the same, and they're the same type, and you get a warning or that it won't work out, you may also need to ensure that they have the same detail type, that each account A and account B that you're trying to merge have the same detail type before you go to merge them. So just know about that, that additional nuance. And then also know that the concept of deleting an account in QBO is different than it is in QuickBooks Desktop. In QuickBooks Desktop, if you don't have any transactions associated with an account, you can Control D. It says, do you want to delete the account? You delete it. It is gone from the planet Earth and never to be seen again. In QBO, one of the neat things is when you delete an account, what it's really doing is just making that account inactive. So there's no way to technically, completely get rid of an account in QBO. I know what you're thinking. I'll come back to that in a second. But just know that if you're deleting an account or if our client deletes an account, what it's really doing is making that account inactive. And you can show all of the accounts, and maybe I should also illustrate this. We're able to, whoops, did not work very well. We're able to show here on in the lower right, you can choose to include inactive, and that will show the deleted accounts in the list. So I'm not sure if I have any, but if I do, it'll have a little parenthetical that says deleted at the end of it. Doesn't look like any of these do. So, oh, there it is, one at the very top. So this payroll checking account, see how it says deleted? That means that it's been deleted. It's inactive, and you can just click on this make active to put it back in active. I think we're going to talk in a little bit about best practices and what happens if you have a balance in an account when you delete it. But I want to come back to what I think you might be thinking. Our client creates 1,700 expense accounts, and if we don't have the ability to delete them, that's going to create kind of a mess, albeit inactive mess, but sort of a mess within our chart of accounts. So one practical recommendation I would make on that is I create an account. If I've got 6 or 7 expense accounts that I want to delete, and I don't want them to show up in the list, they don't have any transactions in them really, I create an expense account called X Archive. X because it shows up at the bottom of the list if I do it, or you could do Z Archive. And then you can merge each of the expense accounts into the X Archive account. Then you just have one sort of scar tissue account. So you can eliminate the clutter even within the, even though they're going to show up only in the inactive arena. So hopefully that makes sense. One of the big issues with, for me, with doing a webinar is I'm getting no visual or no audio feedback. So I'm just assuming that you're able to understand what I say. And I think we'll have time for questions, not to mention the chat should be available for questions. And if you'll pardon me, I just want to take a minute to, seemingly unable to see the questions on my screen. So excuse the pause there. So if you are deleting, making inactive, a balance sheet account, and that balance sheet account has a balance in it, so you've got a checking account with a $100 balance in it, and you choose to delete it, it's going to take the balance in that account and push it to our favorite account, open balance equity. So you're going to end up with a balance in OBE if you delete a balance sheet account, or more likely if a client deletes a balance, it deletes a balance sheet account with a balance in it. So know that that's a risk that's out there, and if you see a balance in open balance equity, that's one of the ways that gremlin can get created. So what I would do if I want to delete a balance sheet account is go into the individual transactions in that account and move them to something else, or get that balance to be 0, write it off to expense or whatever other appropriate asset account it should be in before you delete the balance sheet account. You can always, as I illustrated, you can always make a deleted account active again, and you can, if you want to troubleshoot the issue, let's say your client deletes a bank account with a balance in it, you can here at the bottom make it active again, make the changes that you need to make, and then delete it again. So that's the fix for that. So reclassifying transactions, switching to another tool that we have through QBOA, we can go in and reclassify in a similar way to QuickBooks Desktop, where you can either assign classes or reclassify the expense account that has been used on a variety of transactions, let's say all to the same vendor. No prompt on closing date. I'm not sure what that is referring to. We do have the ability to assign a closing date to our clients' QBO companies, which is very important, particularly in a corporate scenario where we want last year's balances to remain anchored to the tax return. So you can assign a closing date, and my intuition is that if you are doing a reclassify transactions and you go beyond a closing date period, you're going to be prompted. I'm just really curious about no prompt on closing date. So I don't want to persiflate on that. I just don't want to make an incorrect statement. But know that you have the closing date tool. Yeah, thank you, Woody.
Hey, it's
yes.
Woody. How you doing there?
Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you, Woody.
Good to hear your voice.
It's like phone a friend. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're doing a grand job. I just wanted to, I love how thorough you are and your pace. It's just wonderful. But I just wanted to weigh in on the closing date. You can get a prompt for a password. You have to actually select that, though, in the company settings. So there is a way to get a prompt.
Okay, so if somebody goes to reclassify transactions and they're reclassifying transactions that are in a closed period, will they not be prompted?
I'm sorry. I'm just talking about the regular closing date password, not with the batch reclassify. I think you're right. I'd have to test that. I don't believe you get the pop-up. So let me test while we're still on this, and I'll come back in later.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thank you, Woody Adams. Sure. So it's time for our CPE keyword. You'll want to make a note of the CPE keyword because you're going to be prompted to enter the CPE keyword in poll later in the session. So the CPE keyword is acacia tree. So I'm going to leave this up for just a minute. And what I'd like to do at this time, I know I've referenced the poll where you'll enter the CPE keyword later in our session. I'm going to put up another poll here to understand, of those of you who are attending this session today, I want to know kind of the breakdown of type of accounting professional. So I'm going to launch a poll here. If you will please let me know, what type of accounting professional are you? So this is a convenient time to take the poll, and then I'll leave the CPE keyword up a little bit afterwards as well. I just want to wait until more responses come in. Thank you for responding, and if you haven't, please do. I just wanted to share the results. It looks like it's a pretty even split between accountants and bookkeepers, those who identify themselves as accountants and bookkeepers, and approximately equivalent of ProAdvisors and certified ProAdvisors. So it's sort of third. Pretty even split. So I'm going to close that poll, which should leave our CPE keyword up again. And the CPE keyword is acacia tree. Okay, so I'll leave that up for 5 more seconds. Acacia tree. I don't want anyone to miss out on the CPE opportunity here. So let's talk about downloaded transactions, which I think of as bank feed. So as a semanticist, particularly with Intuit's phrasing, let's call it bank feed. So I want to just talk in general about bank feed, and then I'll talk about the specific items that are on the slide. Bank feed, to me, is this phenomenal opportunity we have to be able to allow QBO to go out every night or every few nights on its own, log in to the financial institution, so bank and credit card accounts primarily. Is there any other kind of bank account? So it goes out to the bank, downloads the transactions, and brings them into the bank feed area. It's important to note a few things. For those of us who have fear as accounting professionals of the black box sort of fully automated garbage. The bank feed is a sort of purgatory area. It gets the transactions from the bank, but does not record anything in our books unless or until the user, or we as the accounting professional, tell it, I want to add accept or match accept, and I'll talk about those two types of transactions, into the books. So the bank feed is bringing information from the bank, but will not record. It's just designed to make it easier to record or reconcile transactions into the books. So you have each of your bank cards, and so there are two different types of ways to record transactions in the books, and I am a little bit fearful that as I go out to, let me try to find another another QBO company that has some transactions in the bank feed. I'm almost tempted to go into my own books to illustrate this because the imagery is key. I don't have any transactions, so why would I walk myself into that, right? Where I say imagery is key and then I don't have the image. This is the bank feed screen. So this is where the transactions come in. And the way I look at it, when the transactions come in here, you're going to have an action item here on the very far right that will either be add or match. Those are the only two things that you can do from the transaction that's coming in from the bank. So let's use an example. With my business Chase Visa, every night the transactions are coming in. And I'm a really tidy accounting professional. I use the mobile app to record my transactions in advance. So almost all of the time, my expectation is that the transactions will already be in the books. Therefore, almost all of the time, I'm using match accept to get the transaction in the book. That's using bank feed as a reconciliation tool. I'm not using bank feed really to record the transactions. I mean, in limited cases I am, but most of the time I'm using bank feed just to say, yep, this indeed, the transaction that came from the bank is indeed what I've recorded in my books. The benefit to using bank feed as a reconciliation tool is that when I go to reconcile my bank account or my credit card account, it never takes more than 4 seconds. This is true because every transaction that's matched has a date associated with it in the bank feed. So I don't know how to describe. I'm so excited about this. I'm stumbling over my own words. But imagine if you have these transactions coming in and you have them matching. Reconciliation is really just a matter of putting in the ending date and the ending balance and saying, yeah, that's right. So that's using bank feed as a reconciliation tool. Now let's switch to a client who is less than tidy about entering transactions in his or her books. Bank feed may also be used as an input tool to alleviate what we used to have to do where you type in date, tab, payee, tab, amount, tab, account, boop, boop. The bank feed can be used as an input tool because it's getting the date, many times the payee, it's getting the description from the bank, and you can have it copy the description to the memo line, the searchable memo line. I think is where this illustrates. So you can use bank feed as an input tool or allow clients to use bank feed as an input tool. So here's the risk. The risk is that a client may not understand whether they're using it as an input tool or a reconciliation tool, and they may duplicate transactions. For example, if a client writes a check 2 weeks ago and for $100 to a vendor, and they forget to put the check number in, or they put the wrong check number in when they record the transaction in their books. When the bank feed comes in, it has the date, the date it cleared, I should say, because it's information coming from the bank. It has the check number. It has the amount. It doesn't have any other information. So the client may not realize that that's that same $100 transaction. They do an add accept within bank feed. Now they've duplicated the transaction in the bank register. So the way I look at it, and this is just Bryce's perspective on how to implement bank feed, there are many right ways to do it. I like to put clients in a bucket of either using bank feed as an input tool, where they're not entering any transactions in advance, or using bank feed as a reconciliation tool, where the expectation is that you're seeing match accept most of the time. So the way this plays out practically is that for bank transactions, true bank account transactions, most of the time I use bank feed as a reconciliation tool, because clients are very aware of what their bank balance is, and they're very careful to manage that balance and make sure the register is accurate. For credit cards, since it's not impacting their cash balance, oftentimes they can wait. They can wait a week, a month, whatever, to enter those charges. So that's a good implement for using bank feed as an input tool. So I want to highlight one other thing here in bank feed. This copy description feature is somewhat new and is phenomenal. It's a great example of how well Intuit listens to our feedback as accounting professionals and also to its user base to make changes in the app that respond really well. And there's no better example than this. What this copy description box does is the bank feed information that comes down from the bank, of course, allow myself to introduce myself. The bank feed that comes down, like let's say you've got a transaction to, I'm trying to pick some national example. Does everyone have Chevron gas or Target? Target's a good example. If Target as a vendor comes down and it says, you know, Target, and then it'll have maybe some information about the store number, their location. That's the information you see on the bank statement when you do, let's say, a debit transaction to Target or a credit card charge. So in that example, what comes down from the bank feed is all of this, you know, target and location, and we want that to be a searchable part of the database in QBO. So this copy description throws it into the memo line that is the searchable memo line within the QBO company. So that's a critical feature in terms, I think, in terms of making the data more robust, so that even if our client mistakenly does not assign a payee, we can then smoke out where that transaction, you know, what payee that transaction should be associated with. And we also do have a column for payee to see here. So I got a little overly excited about bank feed because I see bank feed as really the gateway drug benefit of QBO as a tool in getting transactions into the books faster, easier. And the question is whether we can train our clients to be able to not only get it in faster, easier, but faster, easier, and better, get quality of information in there. Because this does, as a bank feed really does make reconciliation easier, and it makes it easier for our clients to enter the data. We may decide, because we can be in this data all the time, maybe we decide that we as the accounting professional are the only ones who should deal with bank feed for those clients for whom this tool is a little too much to handle. So when you're setting up a bank feed, it's important to know that you get a choice about how many days you download. So up to a certain extent. So if you download Wells Fargo or B of A, you're going to get 90 days, I think, as a maximum generally. And you can slam that down to be 30 days or 5 days. And sometimes when bank feeds have issues, you need to disconnect and reconnect, which is very easy to do. But when you reconnect, you want to make sure maybe you just pick 0 days, because if you re-download another 90 days of transactions, the risk is that you will duplicate transactions in the register. So you if you do duplicate transactions, if by mistake you re-download 30 days and you see a bunch of duplicates in the list, you can check off those transactions in the list and choose to exclude them. One of the batch actions is to exclude the ones that you've selected. So if you exclude them, then they're going to go to the excluded tab and you won't see them again. You will not have the risk of recording an excluded transaction. All of these new terms with BankFeed. Okay, so let's talk about linked transactions in the rubric of BankFeed. So if I keep coming back to this very blank BankFeed screen, and maybe that's not helping. I'll just stay on the PowerPoint slide. If you have a deposit that comes into BankFeed, this is really cool. As you know, it's important to follow the proper workflow through, where if you create an invoice, then you receive a payment, and finally you make a deposit. There are 3 distinct transaction types involved in that money in workflow. So BankFeed in QBO helps you make transaction number 2 and 3. So for example, I generate an invoice to a customer, and let's say I'm not a QuickBooks Payments subscriber, which is another phenomenally great benefit both to QBO and to any user who subscribes to QuickBooks Payments. But if you're not a QuickBooks Payments subscriber, you send an invoice out to a client, or you are, and they pay by check. You receive the check and make the deposit. You probably do that through your phone, and the deposit shows up and is downloaded through the BankFeed. What QuickBooks will do, what QBO will do, is it will notice that, so if I send out an invoice for $150, and there's a deposit that comes in 3 days later for $150, it will suggest that that deposit may be related to the open invoice for the customer. So you can, with one click, you can record the received payment and make deposit transactions all in one fell swoop. What it's really doing is increasing the bank balance and decreasing accounts receivable, so it saves the whole going through undeposited funds both ways for those who are playing along by debit credit, but it allows a simpler workflow and helps our clients avoid the risk of duplicating income. We've all seen this, right, where they create the invoice, they forget to create the received payment transaction, and they code the deposit direct to income, thereby duplicated income on an accrual basis, and leaving the invoice unpaid. So that's the help that BankFeed does with these linked transactions. The same thing happens on the payable side. You've got a bill outstanding, it sees a debit for the same amount coming in, it'll say, hey, is this to pay this bill? So it's a great helper as long as we know what that is. So on to the next, the undo feature. If you're in BankFeed and you, or more likely your client, records a transaction that you want to Etch-a-Sketch, you have the ability to undo a recorded BankFeed, and that is in the In QuickBooks tab. You will see the transactions that have been recorded through the BankFeed. Once they're in here, you can select them and choose to undo, in which case they'll go back to the New Transactions tab. So I think I had already described the workflow on it's important for clients to understand that when they create an invoice, they're locked in to a workflow of receive payment, make deposit. Some clients don't create invoices, or they create invoices outside of QuickBooks. I know, it's a shocker, but some people don't track that stuff. They may want bank feed to just record the deposits directly to sales. That's okay. And they can assign a customer to that sale direct from the deposit. So the help menu in QBO, I want to give appropriate credit to the individual who is singularly the reason I adopted QBO and who was very helpful and continues to be helpful in my understanding of QBO. Her name is Stacy Kildall. She's been a relentless campaigner of QBO for many years, and she said one time some years ago that she is able to find just about everything in the help menu in QBO. I was incredulous, but then I started using the help menu, and it's really different from like what normal F1 help is. I don't know exactly what's going on in the back end, but there is rarely a case where I go into help in QBO and cannot find the answer. So I'm using this help screen, and it brings up a little search box, and you can type in. It's very Google-like. So it's going to be able to find the keyword and find the relevant help article. Of course, as with almost everything, you can also use Google to find to find out everything about everything. So Google is also a good way. The one caveat I'll mention about using Google is that oftentimes, this is just me speaking, when I Google for something, even if I put in QBO or QuickBooks Online in my search, it'll come up with content that is related to QuickBooks Desktop, just because the content for QuickBooks Desktop is so much more prevalent out there. So be careful when you're reading the articles to make sure that it relates to and has images for QBO. So hopefully this has helped you understand what kinds of mistakes clients can make, and I cannot overemphasize, but will continue to emphasize, that bank feed is one of those tools that can be really great to be able to get transactions in accurately and completely into books, and it can also be a big risk for clients who don't understand it and us as accounting professionals who don't understand to help our clients learn to use it right. So we also talked about some of the common mistakes that clients make and how to fix those, and where to go for help, which is the help menu is really worth perusing. So let me talk about the ProAdvisor program a little bit, because it's different than it used to be. So I want to describe the changes just briefly. Currently, to be a member of the ProAdvisor program doesn't cost anything. So you can become a member, or you or your accounting professional friends, I know about a third of you are already a member of the ProAdvisor program who are here with us today. If you're not a member of the ProAdvisor program, know that you can go to proadvisor.intuit.com and sign up to be a member of the ProAdvisor program without paying a nickel. That entitles you to be able to use QuickBooks Online Accountant to access QuickBooks Online companies. It allows you to become certified, which will allow you to be listed on the Find a ProAdvisor site. And a little story on that. A long time ago, I found a great deal of my business through the Find a ProAdvisor site, and becoming certified and becoming advanced certified and becoming more engaged with Intuit and more educated about the products, and this is a great example, you're off to a good start, it is phenomenal to me how many people call up every week or email or contact me in some way because they're in pain in product. And for me, there's no better place to turn a prospect into a client when they have a really painful need within the product. It's different than saying, I want a tax preparer that'll that, because I don't like my existing preparer, something like that. The needs within product allow us an opportunity to really satisfy the client and understand and help them to understand how proficient we are, which in turn becomes a growing base for selling additional services and tax services too. So if you're a tax practitioner, I recommend you join the ProAdvisor program at no cost, so the price is right too. Become certified, become listed, and start to see the benefit of that referral source. So I know what you're thinking, but wait a minute. I'm paying about $600 a year for ProAdvisor program. Why would I continue to pay that? There is and I'm not sure on the exact pricing. It's between $500 and $600 a year, as we have always paid for ProAdvisor program. Paying that fee entitles you to the software, the desktop software that we're used to getting. So if you have a need to get QuickBooks Accountant, the current version, QuickBooks Accountant Desktop 2015, QuickBooks Accountant Enterprise 15, or the current version of whatever the application, the desktop application is, QuickBooks Point of Sale, QuickBooks for the Mac, those desktop applications are a benefit to those who are in the paid ProAdvisor program. But just know that you can become certified. You can get discounts for your clients. You can use wholesale billing to get half off of the rack rate for QBO subscriptions in perpetuity, as long as you take on the billing for the subscription. So that's what's new in the ProAdvisor program. I want to be very careful on time. I want to leave a few minutes for questions. I hope to be able to bring up the panel for questions. What I want to do now is bring up the poll so that you can enter the CPE keyword, and not enter, actually, it's choose among these for the CPE keyword. So if you would, just enter the CPE keyword, and then I'm going to just go silent for a minute here. Yes, Woody.
Yeah, I can weigh in on the pop-up. I did get one. There's a couple different scenarios. When you do the setting, you can either, let's see, there's an option to, have to put in a password, or, allow me to enter it in the prior period after I see a warning. So that's the setting that I have. I think most people will have that, although a password's good too. In my case, I didn't have to put in a password, but when I'm reclassifying transactions in that tool, it stops me with a prompt that says, here are the following errors. You must also click Save again to make the change. So basically what QBO is doing is saying, all right, if he clicks Reclassify again, it means that he's acknowledged the warning and there's no password to put, so go ahead and do it. So you do get a prompt, net-net. Right.
Okay, so closing date is the same in reclassifying transactions as it is in editing a given transaction.
Right, exactly. And I would argue that the closing date password is almost identical to how it behaves in desktop.
Okay. Yeah.
For the most part. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you. So it looks like, and then where am I? So it looks like most of you have responded to the poll. I want to make one final push. If you have not responded to the poll for the CPE keyword, please do. I'll leave that up for just about 5 more seconds, and then I'll close that poll. Great. And then, whoops, my apologies. I have made one of these tragic presentation kerfuffles. This is the last slide, that's why. So I'm going to just, in the couple minutes we have, attempt to find the Q&A box. There we go. So if you have questions, please let me know. One question I happen to see is about QuickBooks Online Accountant and being a ProAdvisor. So if you're a pro-advisor, it may be important just to talk about what QuickBooks Online Accountant is, what QBOA is. QBOA is I think about it as a lens through which we see our clients' QBO companies. So if you're a pro-advisor, you are entitled to QBOA, and there's no cost to getting that view, getting that client list, and getting those accountant tools. So that's a benefit of being a pro-advisor. So the CPE certificates will be sent, emailed to you within a few weeks of today. So that I mentioned at the beginning, but that was a long time ago. There's so many detailed questions, and I want to address them. Oh, so let me do this one final question. I want to be respectful of your time, particularly during tax season. I like that this came up. The question is, can you use QBOA for your own accounting practice versus working with client company files? And so again, the QBOA is really a lens to see any QBO company. So I have a QBO company for my business. I have a QBO company for my personal books. So I add myself. So I'm the company the master administrator user, and I also add myself as an accountant user, so that I can see those companies in the QBOA client list. So that's a benefit. Just always add yourself as the accountant user in the QBO company, even if it's your own company, so that you have access to that. So I want to thank you for attending. It's been a lot of fun for me. I couldn't be more excited about QBO and all the possibility that it offers and the improvements that are being made all the time. And I want to thank you for attending, and thank Intuit for allowing me to present to you today. Thank you.